What's going on, everyone? I just want to check that I'm live on Twitter here, but welcome to another episode of Conspiracy or Just a Coincidence. I am Jack Allen. We're live on Twitter. Awesome. So, everyone, I'm sorry I didn't get to publish my episode last night. I was behind on my notes. As you know, I got a real job and then I got this job. So sometimes it takes a little bit. Also, if you notice, I changed my headphones. Liv Allen made fun of me enough to said those red headphones look ridiculous, so I had to change it up and bought some little iPhone headphones to look less ridiculous. So I hope you like the change. Hopefully everyone can hear me all right. So today's episode, well, first I wanted to say this. It like relates to this. I'm sure if you guys know who Barstool Sports is, that Dave Portnoy guy got they wrote like a hit piece on him or whatever. And, I don't believe everything the media says, obviously. And I think everyone's got ulterior motives. But what I will say is it relates to this well, because people that get in power that are like weak or degenerates, if you live a life where you're taking risks that people are going to be able to utilize against you, that's not a good thing, especially if you have power. And that's everybody that has power is people that are these compromisable people. And this is nothing new. Like we see this with Jeffrey Epstein, like the shirt I'm wearing. Every guy that's in position of power, or gal, I guess, they usually get to a position of power because they have some proclivity that there is going to be used against them. And I just bring that up with Portnoy because if he was married, had kids, was an honorable husband, faithful husband, none of this stuff would happen. Yeah, they would write he's a racist and all that stuff like that. But so few people believe that stuff. It would just be the loud people yelling at themselves, yelling at each other, doing in an empty room. But when you act like an idiot and do things like he got in trouble, for anyone who doesn't know, for like choking girls, doing these weird things, like just degenerate stuff and filming them and all this stuff, you're gonna get you do degenerate things, you hang out in darkness, bad things are gonna happen to you. And I've lived through this, not in that way, but when I was using drugs, the more bad things you do, the more bad things happen. Even if you're not a bad person, you get arrested, or you lose friends, you lose family, you lose stability. And that's why I don't know if you're all Christian that you listen to, but the Bible sets out like a lot of rules. And I'm not a biblical scholar, but if you live by like these rules that are pretty like universal, like being just a good person, getting married, the normal things, bad things not like this will happen to you, and you won't be compromised. At least that's for sure. So today's episode is about World War I. And before I started reading this, everyone knows Franz Duke Ferdinand gets assassinated, and that's what starts World War One. And that's all I literally knew. And I've read some things, and I tell you guys, I learned with you by reading these books, because I did not. I got fine grades in school, but I didn't learn anything. So this book, it's called The Secret Origins of World War One, and this is part one. Sorry, I'm a little cold in my house. Keeps it freezing. It's like 64 degrees in here. All right. But anyway, so I'm going to start it off with, I tried to do all these photos for us, but my computer skills are lacking. So I can't even get I wanted to do like a slideshow. I guess I got to like open it up in PowerPoint next time, but let me do it this way. It's a share screen, because it's like that. If you guys are listening, if you want to check out the show on visual, if not, you don't have to, but it's I prepared all these photos for it so we could take a look at them easy. All right, there we go. This one and this one. All right. So let me just make sure we're up here. Awesome. We'll go this way. All right. So our first character, if you listen to the Odd Man Show in my show 2 days ago or whatever, this is Cecil Rhodes. But so in 1891, a secret society comprising of English ruling class was formed in London with the long-term goal of taking over essentially the whole goddamn world. Now, this is like a must-read. the one book that he references a lot. It's Carol Quigley's book. I think it's called Tragedy and Hope, but it's like 900 pages, and I can't read that fast enough to do a show on it, or we'd have to do it in like 9 parts. But he talks a lot about this British ruling class. And I talked to Oddman yesterday, or whenever I listened to or whenever we did the show, and I said, because he talked about Cecil Rhodes a lot and these people in the UK, and I like would hear that, but in my mind, I'm like a stupid American, and I think, dude, the UK, there is no way that they are as powerful as the Rockefeller family and all this stuff like that. And maybe they're like a little side group, but dude, these people were so powerful and so smart. And you can kind of like view it as the way is that these people were like the financial kings, and America was their power. So we all say like, oh, America stood up for liberty in 1776 and fought back the monarchy. I believe they told everyone that, and the people died because they believed in what they were doing and fighting for liberty. But I don't think that's really what it was. They did it to show division, like, okay, America's not from us, but we follow the British in every war since that. There was a few skirmishes between us, but we sacrificed thousands of lives for nothing to do with us. So we were more interlinked, at least at the top, than we like to believe. Mr. Cecil Rhodes here is a key guy in that. So he funds this group called the Inner Circle. There's like so many names. And basically, though, he selects a group of men that were the Inner Circle that would secretly control British and colonial foreign policy. So that selected thing, like all the people he picked, they would either get elected into positions of power, obviously, or he would select them. And just like any group, you bring in unknowing, like eager people, eager to please, just like they do today, right? I mean, think of how many people they put in positions of power that have never had power in their life. So they're thrilled. They now they have all this power they always dreamed of, and they're not ready to lose it. So they are going to do everything in their goddamn mind, right or wrong, to maintain that power. And humans have not really changed that much ever. In 200 years, they certainly haven't changed. And it's just like so the people you bring in, it's just like the CFR. So like the CFR, you have Tulsi Gabbard and all these people that probably, maybe the ones at the bottom at least, probably have like good things at heart, but they don't know what the overarching thing they're doing or leading to is. Trying to figure out how to share this screen right. Let's do this. Sorry everyone listening. I'm trying to figure out, I have all these photos. Let's do it this way. Does this work? It doesn't show up. Oh man. All these photos I just got for us now are freaking pointless. Oh God. All right. We'll figure it out. This is my last try. Sorry, I'm doing this live and thought I could plan it out, but all right, I'll just pull them up separate. Okay. So just like the CFR. So two components of their shared approach were secrecy, understanding that the reality of power was much more apparent than the appearance of power. So this hiding behind loud and like disposable individuals like politicians, whether it's the president, the prime minister, they are privy to little information. You fund their lives, they get blackmailed, you get blackmail on them, and then they do your bidding. Or like that thing that I just said, they're addicted to power. The same tactics were used, which is insane. So this group, the Cecil Rhodes group, ties to these families like the Salisbury and Rosebery family of British politics. And these two families, they were in British politics for like 300 years, 200 years, just like our dynasties in the United States. You have like the Bush family and you know the families. But yeah, in this Rosebery family, who is huge in British politics, well, they combined with the Rothschild family at one point, and they have this beautiful castle that they built, the girl Hannah de Rothschild and the one Rosebery families, which just shows you, even this was like 1800s, you're interlinking politics and banking. And we see that, though we don't see it like as flashy today, powerful people marry powerful people. And back then it was even more important. This was a great move for the Rothschilds because it gave them an open kind of door policy into British politics. So the leading activists were Cecil Rhodes, William Stead, Lord Esher, Alfred Milner, and Lord Nathan Rothschild. And the key goal between Britain and was to strengthen a bond between Britain and USA, not the people of USA, but making sure the people in politics were linked to Britain, right? So by the mid-19th century, the House of Rothschild was based in London, Paris, Frankfurt, Vienna, and literally dominated European finance. Their holdings branched across the world in New World investments, steels, railways, oil. Cecil Rhodes is diamond and gold companies. So De Beers, we all know De Beers. De Beers is nothing. I think the saying is like nothing like a De Beers diamond or something like that. Maybe I just made that up. They should use that. But De Beers was bought by Cecil Rhodes. How did Cecil Rhodes buy De Beers? Well, it was bought by the Rothschilds. And I'm sure many of you know that the whole diamond conspiracy, the diamonds are artificially held, like they have much more of them in vaults that they only release slowly to maintain that, that fanciness of it. So this is a Rothschild creation. It's a Rothschild company. They probably don't own all of it. I remember when I first started telling my dad about the Rothschilds, and he sent me a YouTube video of this guy the Rothschilds, they did have a lot of power at one point, but not anymore. Yeah. So you're telling me that this family that controlled the finances of every major European power, which dominated the globe, just gave up? They just let their money go away? No, they didn't let their money go away. Who lets their money go away? Nobody. The Rothschilds still have this much power. Maybe not. They're behind the scenes. They've passed the torch on. People have changed their names. But these families that have still had power for hundreds of years continue to have power. When I saw that video, I wasn't well versed enough to dispute that, but I found that so crazy that they own De Beers diamonds. What? It's just so ironic because it's like banking. They create this false supply chain or supply and demand through advertising and propaganda. But I will tell you, the Rothschilds were brilliant. They started this in the Dutch House of Orange in the 1600s as the world's first central bank. And this is so the Orange family was in so much debt. The Rothschilds loaned them all this money. They owned the country, right? They owned, because they loaned them so much money. And they've repeated this process again and again. So along with marrying the one Rosebery family in the UK, the Suez Canal, which came up ironically 8 months ago, the Suez Canal, they had the majority of shares. They bought it for the British royal family. And they also gave shares to politicians that they supported, which means politicians that supported them, right? Brilliant, right? Brilliant moves, so wealthy to do this, but just to take down each country's monarchy by monarchy. And Nathaniel Rothschild, that was the one in the UK, he was intimately associated with Cecil Rhodes and a secret society, and the alliance grew, added more people that proved useful to them, like Alfred Milner. And he gave Cecil Rhodes all the firepower he needed to make his dream a total reality. So Cecil Rhodes, he goes down to South Africa, right? He's getting his gold and diamonds, thanks to, of course, the Rothschild families, which turns into De Beers. And I know I've said that 5 times, but it's just, I just learned that, that's insane, dude. Diamonds are artificially, rise the prices for this rock. And it's that family. What are the odds of that? So he was granted a royal charter from the British South Africa Company, which means that he was permitted to have a private police force, a private army that was used to brutally hurt more and more native territory. And so I used to be a libertarian. I said this before, but this is why a true free market with no state at work, and I say this super lovingly, but if you don't have a powerful state, this is what happens. The private company of Cecil Rhodes comes to your homeland because you happen to be living on some rocks that are very valuable, and they put a police force and army down there. So you couldn't walk on their roads. You couldn't be out of your house after a certain time because one person, they say, caused a ruckus, and now you're locked down. And if you step out of line, they're going to kick the shit out of you, put you in jail. Good luck getting out of that, because their private army is stronger than your state's army, and you have zero recourse. They say you attack them, you're in jail. What are you going to do? So down in South Africa at this time, there was the Boer Republic. And I never heard about these wars either. So maybe they're new to you, or maybe you're better at history than I am at this point. And I'm going to catch up, though, but maybe I won't. But anyway, so the Boer Republic, it was basically this farming community. And so you had the Dutch, like on the east, the west, you had German, and the Dutch were the Boers, but they're all kind of similar down there. They want to just be Christian farmers. They govern themselves. They were a colony, technically. They would pay taxes, I guess, but just really, they didn't want to deal with the craziness. I know it's so fun, like the craziness of Europe at that time. They just wanted to live in peace, really. And then they find gold in this Transvaal area, which is the part of the Boers, and it transformed these useless farming lands into huge riches. Now, the Rothschilds and Cecil Rhodes, they can't have that. So they hatch a scheme to invade the colony. And how many times have we seen this exact move? This exact move. It's exhausting, dude. They do the same thing. So what they do is they want that land that you're on, right? Guatemala. Guatemala is my example from the one episode. Well, Guatemala has the United Fruit Company. So what do? Oh, there's a revolution in Guatemala planned by the CIA or OSS, whoever. Yeah, it was CIA at that time. They plan a revolution. American interests are down there. God, they're attacking American interests. We need to send the military to stop this chaos and this violence. And that's what they did down there. They antagonized. The Boers, I'm thinking of the R word. But anyway, the Boers respond, and they send military down there to kick the shit out of the uprising that they caused. And this plan almost blew up in the secret elite's faces. It caught tons of death. They didn't win well. Even though the British sent their military down, the Boers, because they had the right, they were coming from the side of right, morally right, honorable. And these soldiers, they have no skin in the real game. They're being paid they're mercenaries, and they lose this battle. So the Boers are able to kind of kick the shit out of Rhodes and Rothschild armies here, but they still want their stuff. They're going to get it, right? They're going to get it. So Alfred Milner, that's this other guy. Jeez, my photos, guys. I'm so heartbroken by this. That's all right. So Alfred Milner, he takes the reins. He appoints himself as High Commissioner in the Cape Colony. So the Cape Colony, the Brits still own, but they wanted the land right. So if you know Africa, South Africa, Johannesburg, the Brits are owning this land, that general area, and they wanted the land next to it too. Okay, they wanted more, as all rich, greedy people do. So his objective, this first Boer battle did not work out well for the British. Well, so what he needs to do is he needs to provoke a bigger war and make sure he gets more military so they can get those interests that the Rothschilds and Cecil Rhodes are into. So the thing is, again, there's always good politicians, I guess, or well-meaning politicians. And especially at this time before it was completely corrupted, you had some random people that would get in because, newspaper maybe didn't focus on them. And the one colonial secretary guy, Joseph Chamberlain, he said, we don't want a war policy. They're living fine. We're living fine. We don't want another fight. But Milner's secret elite network, just like they do now, any good guy, any good gal, they'll neutralize you. And it makes it even easier if you have sexual proclivities to do that. So Milner advises associates with war was absolutely necessary. So now with the experience of the failed Cecil Rhodes, they know not to make the same mistakes. So they use political agents to stir up unrest in the Transvaal. Oh my God, where have we seen that? Where have they used that tactic before? Oh, maybe January 6th, or every event that the CIA's been behind, they do the same thing. They use it now in, I think it was 1898 or 1901. They use political agents to cause unrest, to remove freedoms, to bring in a huge military that's outarms you, the populace, to steal whatever they want to get. It's just sickening, dude. And this book made me realize, like, this, it didn't just start with the CIA in the 50s. It didn't just start in World War II with the Nazis. It started and I did that book, Intelligence in the Ancient World. And they did, they would have political agents back then, but just to see so well organized in 1900, before cell phones, before mass communication, they were using the same tactics of an agent provocateur to steal your freedoms. So there's this guy, and here's another example of what they do. Jan Smutz. So Jan Smutz, he is buds with Cecil Rhodes, best friend, confidant. He's big on capitalizing on the Boers' land. He's all, British supremacy. We are going to take it all. Then out of freaking nowhere, he says, actually, guys, I'm taking the Boer side. I'm going to switch sides. I disagree with you, Cecil. Yeah, we've been friends for 20 years. I disagree. I know I thought we should steal the Boers' land. We're not going to steal the Boers' land. I'm going to defend the Boer people. Wow. He must have had such a change of heart, right? He gets promoted to advisor of the president of South Africa. Wow. They said, geez, we got a guy that was on the inside. He's joined us. He's defected. And we'll get back to him. I'll just finish that. So, that's why I'll get back to him. So just think, Cecil Rhodes, buddy, switches sides. Insert another character that we will learn to be told to love, Winston Churchill. Oh, Winston, the brave World War II man. He was so brave and courageous. Well, Winston was also in the Boer War conflict. Winston's down there, and the soldiers, he gets caught in a Boer War prisoner of war camp. He's tortured, he's beaten, he is starved, and all they were trying to do was just keep the peace in South Africa. But one night, he escapes, crawls in the mud for days, narrowly dodging bullets. He crawls through African terrain. He finds a family. They give him water. He can't stay. He needs to continue to get back home. There's a train. He runs. He jumps on a moving train, takes that train to a boat, sneaks on the boat. He has no money, sneaks on the boat. They get him back to the UK, and he writes this amazing story about what he did. I'm sure he didn't embellish a single thing, right? There's so many holes in that story, first of all, and you can read the book to find out all the holes. But so that's the guy Winston Churchill is. Our war hero, or not ours, but a World War II hero that we're supposed to admire and respect, is a liar, is a huge liar, probably a pussy, because he ran away from what he was paid and chose to do, to fight in this skirmish, to steal a weaker populace's resources. And that was his story. But regardless, the Boer War continues. They send a big baddie down there to show up the Boers. And that's this guy named Kitchener. And Kitchener, they even made, like our Uncle Sam, Uncle Sam Wants You. Kitchener, who had, if I was able to show my pictures, I'll just show this one. It's funny. But Kitchener was, he's like their Uncle Sam at the time. So they even made this is Kitchener. They made a little, like, Britons wants you to join your country's army. God save the king. Oh, wait. No. Got my hopes up. All right. So that's Kitchener. He was not a team player in Milner's mind. Milner wanted a total annihilation of these people. Were they bad people? No, they weren't bad people. They had resources, and they wouldn't freely give them up. And so he doesn't like Kitchener because Kitchener, I wrote in my notes, he has a heart. Whether he has an actual heart, I don't know. But he was more interested. He didn't really want to. He was a soldier. He saw his men die. He wanted just to have them surrender, do like a peace deal, maybe like they get something, or just put it back to the way it was. He didn't believe in fighting this war. But Milner wanted to literally annihilate them and put them Reconstruction under the British flag. So Milner appoints administrators in South Africa, the highest stock quality men from Oxford and Cambridge. And like they do today, who's in cabinets, who's in positions of power, who runs the boardrooms of multi-billion-dollar companies. It's definitely not the guy. It's not me who didn't even graduate from college. It's not you who's watching me that we went to maybe a state school or maybe a private school. No, it's people that are blue blood, and that's who he picks to come down to help. Because why does he do that? Or why do they do that? Why do they pick people that they went to the same school? Because they're indoctrinated the same way. They share the same beliefs. Maybe not on the outside. Maybe they're yelling, equal rights for the working man, but they don't want equal rights. Because I explained this last night. It's like pretty easy to understand. So, my family is a middle-class family. You say you're going to make rules that are going to take the wealth that my family has accrued, which isn't a lot of wealth. I'm just using it as an example. Well, I'm going to fight that. And so do these people. So these people believe they deserve to make you to live. Have you guys work like slaves, have us work like slaves while they sit behind and pull strings of puppets, right? So that it's like an animal reaction. Absolutely, Carl. It is totally just, he said nepotism and cronyism, and they did that then too. They did this now. But Milner, he's catching some heat because at this time, the press, though was controlled by them, they had smaller papers and smaller journalists and honest people that were in journalism. Just like today, not every journalist is a lying leech of a person. There are people that try to write the truth, right? And most of them now are independent, like content creators. But back then, there were people like that worked for the papers, that were amazing, risk-taking journalists. And so he starts getting some articles written about him. Why is he getting articles written about him? Oh, well, because Milner and the UK monarchy and the top politicians knew that he was running concentration camps for the poor Boer farmers that were just trying to farm and raise honest families and practice Christianity. 32,000 women, children, beaten, raped, tortured, all in Milner's concentration camps. And this is Dutch people. Not saying that it would be okay if it was African people, but these are fellow Europeans. Like, that's how sick these people are. There's like unperceivable differences between these two people. The only thing they don't like is that they're on land that could be valuable. And that's all that matters. Doesn't matter that they're kids, that their moms, that their soldiers are raping, starving, beating, using them as slave labor. Money, dude. It's just disgusting. And that's like also why I think I get so angry when I hear like CRT and stuff like that, and probably all of us do, because they want to paint all of us as that, with that broad stroke that, oh, your ancestors were slave owners, especially in America. If you're white, no, dude, 2% if own slaves in America. 2%. And who is that 2%? Well, it's probably the people, the descendants of those people today are probably in positions of power, because regular people didn't have money to buy slaves, right? So it's just disgusting. Like, I hate that, because the elite at the top know that they can deflect this and put it onto us regular people who, for our families, have been for hundreds of years just trying to get by. Oh, and then Milner also, he starts tricking Chinese nationals to come to South Africa to work in the mines with promises of riches and bringing families. And they've done this trick still today. They get like Pakistani, or I saw something like, I can't remember if it was like it was like an anti-Trump documentary, but like building this like golf course or something like Saudi Arabia. And they lie to these people and they put them in, the men in like, dorm room, like 40 men in a room with bunk beds and no air conditioning, and they take their passport and they can't leave. Well, that's what they did then. They did the same thing. And whether that was just like an anti-Trump thing, it happened. It's not, I'm not saying it because of Trump. I'm saying because it happens. So whether I'm wrong on that anecdotal story, they did this. So they did the same thing to Chinese, like, come here, come to South Africa. We'll give you tons of wealth and money. So it makes sense that the Chinese hate us, is basically what I'm saying, because they'll broad stroke Europeans, and we did a lot of atrocious things to them. Not we, again, you and me, but the European elite. So I'm going to just do it this way. I'm using photos with Google, and we'll share it that way, because it's just too good. These photos I made were just too good to share, to not share with us. So let me go like this. Now I just got to mess with my notes, so bear with me here. All right, King Edward. That's who I want to talk about. So King Edward VII. So his mom dies at one point, right? I think she was Queen Victoria as well. And Queen Victoria, she was kind of like from the very small part that I read about her, she seemed kind of badass, because she didn't want any beef with Germany. And this is all going to lead back to Germany, by the way. But she didn't want any beef with anybody, really. She loved her country, and she dies, though. And this guy, King Edward, gets power. And I don't want to jump too far ahead. So the secret elite in Britain viewed Germany's growth in economic and industrial and commercial success as a direct threat to their global ambitions. Because before this, for the previous 100, 200 years, Britain dominated, which is crazy, right? Like a small island dominated the globe. I don't know what a comparison is to a state, because I've never been to the UK, but I live in Pennsylvania. So I just imagine, I imagine the state of Pennsylvania dominating the globe. Like, it is mind-blowing, right? Like, the population size, though it was very large per like area, it's still the size, it's smaller than Pennsylvania probably, dominated the globe, places that were 8 times its size. So how do you, the secret elite, and the way that I say this is like, so at the time before true, like total globalization, you had, this UK power, these UK powers, they probably branched to the US powers and other Europe powers, but you also had like German powers and Russian powers, and the German industrialists, they want to win. They want to be dominant. Well, so these UK powers are viewing this as a threat, the German powers. And Germany in pre-World War I was beautiful, dude, beautiful. And it was destroyed, which is so sad. It's so sad. Let's see if we can pull up some photos here. But they're kind of small. Let's do this one. So beautiful architecture that that I'm going to embarrass. I don't know what the architecture is called, but that beautiful, like colonial day for us architecture. So how do you stop a country that is on a roll and snapping, dude? Well, you start a war with them. That's how you do it. You start a war with them. Because back then, if you ostracize them, countries could survive. They grew their own food. They had their own resources. And did they go to get resources from other places? Absolutely, yeah. But they could survive. Now, imagine if we have become so dependent on other countries. I think it's the plan. I think it's part of the idea that they wanted to make America was self-sufficient. We had farming, we had steel, we had oil, we had everything on this huge. Do you think we just ran out of everything? No, we didn't run out of everything. They want to make us. So if Americans ever said, you know what, guys, we're done. We're closing the borders. We're Americans. We're having a nationalistic state. Forget the world. We need to fix things here. No more. Well, we would have to change our lives drastically, because no pharmaceuticals are made here. We don't get our oil from here. Thanks to a joke. And I hate to get into politics, but Joe Biden's closing the pipelines, all those things like that. But yeah, so war is the only way. So the next step is, how do you get your people to go behind you into war, right? They have always feared us. They still fear us. I always mention the bug's life, the grasshopper. The grasshopper he makes the ants give him the food. And the one time he said, his one guy's like, well, what are we going to eat if they don't make enough food for us? And he says, it's not about food. I think it's about power. It's about fear. And I'm butchering this line, but that's what it is, guys. We outnumber them 1,000 to 1. So what do? They can't have us be angry at them. We got to be angry at each other. We have to be angry at, oh, this person likes Joe Biden, or, oh, this person's a Republican. He's what do they call maggots? He's a maggot. He's a demon rat. No, dude. I mean, dude, yeah, we differ on these things. We all want the same end goals. We want people to be happy, healthy. We want them to be able to work hard and get rewarded for that hard work. We all want that. But they just pick these arbitrary points for us to argue with each other. Like Black Lives Matter is I think that's a horrible group, but they do that. Everyone wants to be proud of who they are and their race. We're so tribal. So this is a great way to divide us even more. It makes Black people less trusting of whites and whites less trusting of Blacks. It's just all this thing. It's the same. So they distract us. So that's what they want to encourage the Brits to go say, we got to go to war with Germany. But at this time, Germany is kicking ass technologically, economically, every way. So Britain says, we need to get allies so we can at least just throw tons of men to get slaughtered and win the war. So they learned 4 lessons from the Boer War. Foreign policy has to be sustained no matter the political party that's in power. Great lesson, right? We have that today. What drastic things, is your life drastically different today than it was when Trump was in office, or before when George Bush was in office compared to now? Besides technology, the foreign policy has remained essentially the same, right? So maybe now it's not anti-Russia as much, it's more anti-China or vice versa. But they learned you need to be able to count on the next guy coming up to maintain whatever goal plan you're working on. And we obviously see that today. So the British Army also needed to make a total overhaul. If they still had wooden ships back then. Wooden ships, isn't that crazy? Let's look up a 1900 British warship. I was enjoying. I'm so upset my photos didn't work, everybody. I'm heartbroken. This is good. So there's these are, and British dominated the oceans at this time. Crazy, right? Look at this thing. And Britain was the ship makers. Isn't that crazy? Dude, that's just nuts to me. And it makes sense. They were the global powerhouse and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, just crazy. So they had to make a total overhaul of the Navy. The Royal Navy had to maintain its historic advantages. And lastly, the general public had to be turned against the evil Huns. So that was what they learned. So Britain's era of isolation had ended in the Anglo-Japanese Treaty of 1902. Crazy, because when 40 years, Germany or Japan was our enemy. Well, this was the first treaty that broke these two isolationist countries, and they made an allyship. So why would they make an allyship, right? Well, they were going to be needed as allies in this war that they were so astute in setting up these moving pieces. So there's a few reasons why, but they would need allies, even though they became long-term enemies. They would also need allyship in France and Russia because they border Germany. And King Edward was the perfect guy to champion this rally to rally the new allies. Edward was a Francophile, and that Dave Portnoy story just connects over and over in this story. That's why I brought it up, because that's interesting, Carl. He says the Germans were using horses too in World War I. We Germans have always been a meticulous bunch. Carl, you're absolutely right. I I am British, so I'm trashing on my, I'm a WASP, but the Germans were an amazing people, amazing. And it's so sad what they've done to you like can't be proud of Germans history at all in Germany. And it's so sad because it's such an amazing history that's been, just like we're going to find out now, it's been totally misconstrued. Germans were not the instigators of World War One in any way. But anyway, so King Edward, he loves the French, and he's a playboy. So what does that mean? He loves drinking. He loves sex. He loves gambling, and he'll gallop on over to France, and they'll wine and dine him. They'll give him brothels of women to sleep with, and he was a degenerate, much like Dave Portnoy is a degenerate. He was a degenerate. So the elite, they funded all of his sexcapades. They gave him plenty of resources. And at this time, remember or know that the king, he was really like they are today, primarily a figurehead. He had more power then and more pull because people still loved the king and the royal family. They loved him much more than they do today and respected them. But he had no real political constitutional power. It was gone. He was like he is today. Very little, like, inconsequential power. So he is acting way out of what he's supposed to do at this point. He's traveling to France. He's making friends. They're partying. They're having sex. They're doing orgies. And he's, being a diplomat, essentially. Belgium even reported the king's actions as the de facto foreign secretary undermined Germany, but they did not know that he was acting on behalf of a much more powerful group. So the king thinks, I imagine he's an idiot. He drinks, he smokes, he loves women, and just wants to party. And this group's giving him all this money and cash to do it. All he has to do is shake a few hands and be taught, whatever. So that's probably what he was. So I said earlier why the Brits need to reanalyze why their military did so poorly in the First of South Africa. And they appoint this guy, Lord Esher. He's appointed to the South African War Commission to find out why this happened. He's buddy-buddy with King Edward, and he became a key part in the reconstruction of their military, their army specifically. He was also a member of the Secret Committee of Imperial Defense to advise the prime minister on matters of defense, including foreign policy. So what this is saying is, even then, the military-industrial complex, working together with the elite to make sure they are there through each political shift that may happen. So that's what they do today, right? You put people, it's almost better to have like your core group of guys not at the top, like the CIA director, which changes with the elections, right? Because Pompeo is it? I don't know who it is now. But so it's better to put your people underneath that guy that are advising the new director. And this way you maintain the same goals that you had, like, oh, well, I don't think we should do that. And he said, no, I don't think we should go attack these people or watch these people. Oh, no, let me explain why we do this. We all do it. And it's easy to manipulate people this way. Your advisors to new leadership, they've got a lot of things to worry about. Trust us. We're not going to steer you wrong, right? And so even then, they're doing that with this Lord Esher. The elite saw how beneficial it was to have a military person in their group. Escher gets a promotion. He becomes a full-time secret elite member. Thus, the elite controlled the reconstruction and the realignment of the army and foreign policy from the start of the 20th century. Great move. I mean, you can't knock them. It was a great move. So the Anglo-French Entente, I think that's like a French word. So if someone knows what Entente means, I think it means like agreement, but that's the way I took it. But anyway, they in 1904, the British control, the French and the British go into like an allyship. They agreed that British could control Egypt and their Suez Canal, and they recognize, and in return, we'll recognize your interest in Morocco. Now, this was huge because France and England had been fighting for hundreds of years, right? So this was like the first treaty ever between the two countries. Now, that sounds pretty good, right? What's so evil about that? Well, what they were doing was they weren't just saying like, yes, you deserve this and I deserve that. Well, also Germany had lots of interest in Morocco. They weren't as colonizing as French was. They just traded with the Moroccans essentially, and they had like a few little villages of their Germans to live. But it was not a. It was more like the Boers in South Africa. They farmed land there. They had little communities, whereas the French were true imperialistic colonists of the time of that era in Morocco. So they obviously didn't mention Germany because they're trying to ostracize Germany. It's kind of like when you have a friend and you don't like the other friend really, and you're like, yo, let's go hang out, but let's not invite him. And then your other friend's like, yo, why didn't you invite me? Right? So the German government trusted the French. The friend that got left out, Germany, said, okay, all right, I guess they just want to be friends. They want to protect those interests. We get it. We have colonies. We're imperialists too. We get what you're putting down. And they say, fine, fair. But eventually they realize this new allyship was basically a dig at Germany, who also had, interest in Morocco. So why would the British do this? Well, they're trying to entice Germany to start a war. The secret elite is, not Germans. And what does that sound like? Pearl Harbor. The Japanese said, don't move your strategically sound and better base from San Diego to Hawaii. That doesn't make any sense. And we're going to take that as an act of war. Well, FDR and Winston Churchill, our buddy who did a Mission Impossible escape, they need America in the war. Well, how do you get America in the war? Well, you entice another country to attack. Oh my God, they attacked us. Well, Japan said, if you put that, you move your whole naval ship, which generals advised FDR not to do, because again, strategically, it was not a smart move. San Diego was a more powerful and easy place to defend, and they moved it. So Germany doesn't take the bait, though, and Japan did take the bait and messed up, too. They shouldn't have done it. They ruined their awesome country they had. So they claim Germany claims this move is trying to undermine Morocco's independence. But to avoid a war through belligerent response, the Kaiser writes a letter to the Queen, or the Brits, the monarchy and the parliament, saying like, I don't know why you did this. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think that's very fair. This is literally like what the letter says. And the newspapers, controlled by the secret elite, spin the hell out of it, and they write it like, oh, he's condescending. He thinks he's better than you. He thinks he's better than us. He thinks he can control us and tell us what to do. We were just making an allyship. All the things the lying leeches do. And so the Kaiser stays calm. He says, let's have an international conference and try to resolve this issue. So the French, and there were so many, I saved these photos, but propaganda, Tangier, propaganda, England, Germany. They had all these like just propaganda stuff, like here, this one, it says, if you're listening, anti-German union, no German foods, no German labor, no German influence, Britain for the British. Pretty, based, but yeah, so they use their powers of the press to frame it as Germany is going to ally with Morocco to remove our interest and beat out. Oh, and they also framed it like Germany's going to take over these poor Moroccan people. The same thing that the French were doing. So in the summer of 1905, so the war is we're ramping up, right? We are ramping up anger. The secret elite in London, they are clicking up with the revanchist clique in Paris openly. Revanchist. I'm trying to do a French accent like, do you like my buffet? But the revanchists of France believe that France deserved to get back all the colonies that it lost due to changing political beliefs and people's beliefs. People started realizing, damn, these people with darker skin are actually humans too. We probably shouldn't chain them up and use them as slaves, So, all right. So they consider war for this move from the Kaiser. But the French minister he had the full backing of King Edward and the secret elite. So he must be a super honest guy that wants the best for his people. But the French parliament filled with more and more regular folks back then, just like the English parliament, and they rejected this warmongering, and they actually forced the guy to resign. Think how amazing that would be. Politicians, they see through a lying leader, and they bring it to the light, and they kick him out. So sad. So sad. We don't have any of that. We don't have any of that. That's why when people waste their energy on these people defending them on Twitter, it's like, dude, come on. He hates you. He thinks you are useless. He thinks you are literally useless. So the secret elite learned from this that they would have to thoroughly corrupt their new French ally before conditions would be ripe to make the move for Germany. Now, this was such an awesome story. So, Japan, Russia, war, Dragalafar, or something like that. All right, yeah, cool. So these aren't all the same photos, but you guys, I'm trying my best here. All right, so I told you how the UK and the Japanese, they formed this alliance with Japan. Now, why would they form that alliance? Well, Japan recently stopped being this isolated kingdom, similar to the UK in the sense of an island, and the Imperial Navy wanted to upgrade their wooden ships. So they tapped on the perennial powerhouse, the UK, to build their new metal warships. Isn't that like nuts, dude? The UK in the 1900s was known for building the best warships. I just find that like mind-blowing. I can't understand that. Like the UK was the best at making warships. So as we learned earlier, the military-industrial complex is interlinked with the parliament, and you think they're going to tell their sources in politics to turn down this millions of dollars of profit that they're going to make? Could this be used against your own people? Maybe, but the money will stay green. So they're going to do it. So the Imperial Navy, they build these new warships. You know what? They need loans to buy these warships. Hey, we're a one-stop shop here in the UK, buddy. You can get us to build your boat. We got the Rothschild Bank. You can take a loan. We're going to charge you interest, a lot of interest, but I'm sure you'll pay it back. And if you don't, we'll just come into your land and we'll annex a little corner of it off for us. So the UK is providing a growing power with power that will kill their own men. And because the secret elite, they aren't, even though it was like British supremacy and European supremacy, all that stuff, the secret elite, and that's what this author calls them, but we all know what that means, just top power people. They are not interested in nationalism. They are interested in a global government. And I say this, I just know it has to be true, or it is true, that that is their fear. That is the biggest fear in the world, that a nationalistic sentiment will take over a country, especially in today's day and age, and reject the globalistic world, because globalism clearly has not helped anybody. The other reason to help Japan the other reason Britain is helping Japan is their newfound ally, Russia. So why would you fund an enemy so your buddy Russia, right? Your buddies, your new buddies. Why are you funding a country that doesn't like your buddy? So you're giving this guy guns to hurt your buddy. Why would you do that? Well, because the Brits, they need him as an ally next to Germany to when this huge war comes about that they're planning. They need somebody to surround Germany with. Well, Russia, how do you get them involved? They're relatively strong, even though politically they're facing some turmoil. It's not the Bolshevik Revolution yet, but it's 20 years away. So, tensions are clearly rising. So you fund this, you need to make them weaker, so they need to join your allyship. Also, people in Russia, or the Russians, they are getting close to India, which is your land, and they're kind of spreading their wings a little too much. You need to knock them down a peg. So Japan, with their new fleet of British ships, Germany sails all the way around the world, because they were in Manchuria or Mongolia at the time, and Japan wanted that land back, which they ended up getting. Listen to my Japanese gold episode. But they wait for the Russian ships. They have to sail all the way around. They're getting coal, and there are different like ports that they're stopping on the way. Japan, brand new ships are just waiting there. And it was in 1904 to 1905. They literally knocked out like 70% of the Russian Navy. It was an embarrassing defeat, like just embarrassing. And Russia then gave up Manchuria to the Japanese, and that was the end of that. But so their buddies funded them, and it worked. It worked. So after this happened, Kaiser Wilhelm, he's key. We got to pull up Kaiser Wilhelm. And he's got a badass mustache. For people watching, you should go look up Kaiser Wilhelm, because his mustache is crazy. Crazy mustache. Look at that. But Kaiser, he this happened to his buddy, his neighbors, the Russians. And he says, hey, why don't we sign a pact that will help each other? You know, it seems like the Brits are pairing up with people. Why don't you and I? We're related, which they are related, and we'll get to that in a second. But we're cousins. Why don't we sign a pact? And Tsar Nicholas says, okay, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I'm going to think about it, but yeah. So, because Germany, like I said, they see what's going on. They're reading the room of what's happening. And this Russian-German alliance could really be beneficial to both of them. So a second Anglo-Japanese alliance offered direct Japanese protection of India. So basically, the Britons also continue their alliance with Japan, because they're buying stuff, and they'll say, oh, we'll give you some goods from India. Just stay cool and don't get too close to us. So as Kaiser correctly stated, he said Britain had used Japan to remove the Russian threat in the East. That's what he's telling Russia. And her intention was similar to use France against Germany and Europe. And so the elite, though, had an upper hand, because Russia at the time, cold up there, cold. They had no warm weather ports. You can't sail when it's frozen. So that was their dream, was to have an ice-free port, and they dangled the carrot of Constantinople and the Straits to entice the Tsar. Like, we're gonna get, if you ally with this, maybe some warm ports will fall off the truck. And the Anglo-Russian Convention was, so the King Edward and Anglo, Brits, top dudes came over. They had this convention. And again, they did that same thing. On paper, they're talking about Persia, but in reality, that's what they were talking about, to become allies. And King Edward, with this, was able to destroy the Kaiser's offer of a peace deal with Russia. There was also a guy, Alexander Izolsky, who was promoted to Minister of Foreign Affairs because he helped ruin the German-Russian ally and helped the Brits. And he was a secret elite guy that loved power. That, what do you know? He's a degenerate. He loves to gamble. He loves to drink. He loves women. He's bankrupt. And the secret elite say, we'll bail you out. You just help us close this deal with Germany and Russia and get it for us. And he does it. And he gets promoted, and they continue to reward him. And that's why, again, it all goes back to Dave Portnoy. I'm just joking, but it all goes back to weak men run our world. They're the figureheads of our world, I should say, because strong men, one, don't gravitate towards position of power. I'm sure most of us listening, the only way that I would want to be in position of power is because it's such shit that I would want to fix it. But besides that, no one with like really, truly good intentions, very few, go in to get positions of power. They do it because they lack power and confidence in their life. Then that's why once they get power, they start acting like a degenerate and sleeping with whatever they can because they never could before, and they value that now because they have the power and or money. And those are the people that rise to the top because they're the easiest people to control. Changing of the guard. So British politics, this was crazy to me too, crazy. So British politics is dominated by a half dozen families from the ruling elite who intended to intermarry. So King Edward was the Kaiser's first cousin. So King Edward was Kaiser Wilhelm's first cousin, and he's setting up to destroy everything his cousin has. That's crazy. Could you imagine doing like your cousin, like, I want to take his house, I want to take his bank account, I want to take his family, I'm going to take it all. And that's what they did. And all these countries in like Europe, like Norway, Spain, Sweden, they're all like blood relation, second cousin, third cousin. And I have to look more into that because I find that baffling how all these top monarchies in the 1900s were all related to each other. And I understand the concept, you marry your niece off to not a country to secure allyship, but just crazy that I never knew that they were all, maybe you did. I didn't know that. But blood relation, you eventually run out of kids, right? So you have to pull from these elite universities who their parents were advisors or were high up that want to maintain the status quo. So you recruit from Oxford or Cambridge, or in the United States, example, you recruit from Yale or Harvard, and so on. So there's a change of government, and they get these three guys, Asquith, Haldane, and Gray. Each are associated with the secret elite, admirers of Alfred Milner. They were like proteges, and he was their mentor. In 1905, the three of them joined together to take over the Liberal Party. And it was the party of this guy, Campbell Bannerman. And Haldane, he knew all these three guys knew they had the clearance of King Edward and Arthur Balfour and all these people that were Campbell's opponents. And Balfour, who we'll get to next episode, he essentially created modern day Israel, the Balfour Declaration. And yeah, so towards the end this was the end of the conservative government. Balfour and Gladstone, they were two like dying old dinosaurs, because the Liberal Party in Britain is taking over at this point. They create this Committee of Imperial Defense. Oh, that's always good when politicians get involved in the military, right? Well, this began the secret military conversations with France and Belgium over the actions to be jointly taken in a war against Germany. Now, what does that sound like to me? It sounds like the Committee of Imperial Defense sounds a lot like the CIA, because they're meeting and propping up leaders with allies in benefit of their goals that may not match with the U.S. populace, and also they don't need to be open with what they're doing. So they made all these countries that were neutral to kind of make a side, using money, blackmail, greed, and usury has destroyed the honest people of this world of holding the reins. And on taking office, they liberally, they kept so these guys were in the Liberal Party, right? And the Liberal Party it was like ours at the time, anti-war, raise the minimum wage, but not raise the working class up. They're too poor. All these things that are honest things. Well, these three, they said that stuff, much like ours do today, but they were not. They were pro-war. They wanted a war with Germany. They were doing whatever the secret elite wanted them to do. So while they're in the crowd, like Bernie's AOC is, we need to tax the trillionaires, tax the trillionaires. These guys did the same exact stuff and the same exact behind their back. They were lying, cheating, stealing, enriching themselves while they fool us. And that's exactly what they do today. AOC is a progressive. Okay, you're a progressive. Well, you are I guarantee you, if I took a look at your decisions, you have sided with whatever your elites want. I remember she, for the funding the Iron Dome, which is $1 billion or whatever it is, she didn't even vote no. She wrote abstained. Well, I think $1 billion could certainly help out a lot of lower socioeconomic class people, AOC. So why at least not voice your opinion? So 1906, the liberal landslide. The victory promised a radical reform in Britain. The working class is exciting. They've got these politicians that care about them. They want the best for them. Well, just wait, right? Just wait. The Liberal Party and those three guys, they still continue the grand design for the war with Germany. They worked with the Foreign Office, with seasoned undersecretaries who are part of the secret elite. And again, I kind of just said this, like this is exactly like the CIA and the new president maintaining power through different elections. And the reforms of the War Office had the full backing of the King Edward and the Committee of the Imperial Defense. He transformed the organization of the British Army. He was upping the Army's ability, modernized the coal-moved warships to oil-driven warships. And so even the one guy believed that the Royal Navy should attack Germany in a preemptive strike, but the Committee of Imperial Defense refused to accept this plan because it's too close. These guys are smart, dude. They're waiting for the right time to be powerful enough to do this. So out of nowhere, one of the few men standing in their way, Prime Minister Campbell Bannerman, leader of the Liberal Party at this time, dies suddenly in the middle of his reign, or term, dies. He was trying to stop the growth of the military, trying to help the poor people, and he dies. How do the secret elite get so lucky all the time? How do these powerful people always have people say in their way, jump off a cliff, push themselves out of a window and fall 20 feet or 20 floors? So this gave the three guys I was just talking, like unfettered control of their liberal government. Also, just to bring Winston Churchill, he was a conservative when he was younger. He changed to the Liberal Party in the UK. Now, what would growth make you, like getting older, usually you become more conservative, not liberal. And I just say that because they're liars. They jump from side to side, whatever will benefit them. If you want power, you'll lie. You'll easily lie about what your beliefs are, and you'll make them believable because you're a liar, and power and money is more important than to you. And it was so weird because the secret elite, after Campbell Bannerman died, this guy right here who was fighting for the people, they almost like had a perfect plan in place to replace him and who to put where. It was almost like they knew it was going to happen, right? So weird. And they tapped our buddy, speaking of Winston Churchill, they tapped him in, and they tapped in Lloyd George, who we're going to get to in 1 second. And they were given their chance to show their worth. They already knew Churchill was a good liar, but now they wanted to see how far he would go for their secret, disgusting plans. So despite widespread objection from the parliament and the public, the secret elite pursued their objective to bring Russia into the allyship by sending the king to meet his cousin, the Tsar, in 1908. And this time, Russia and England did not like each other. The Russians recently sunk a British ship at this time, and the Brits were furious, obviously, because they sunk and they killed their own people. And it was in the paper, they Russians attacked English. And it was literally right around this time. Well, then the secret elite say, holy crap, not a phone. Holy crap, you got to change this. And so then they said, oh, it was a mistaken identity. The Russians were they couldn't see him. It was smoky and it was an accident. And they're so sorry. Look, they wrote us a sorry note for doing that. They didn't mean it, because they need them. They need public support, and the public didn't have it yet. This broke the accepted protocol in diplomatic circles, having King Edward doing this, because again, I told you that monarchy was like a figurehead. And he met with a good old Alexander Astolsky, the guy that helped push through the alliance instead of with Germany. And the result was an agreement called the Anglo-Russian Convention. And again, they met on the surface, like Persia, Afghanistan, but Germany was able to read between the lines that this meeting was really about isolating Germany and preparing plans to go to war with them. And so They're watching this all in real time. He also Zosky went behind the Tsar's back before the meeting to give him like inside info. He was a slimeball degenerate. And he was later credited with concluding. This is Zosky. So you have, the Germans and you have the Austrian-Hungary people. And this sounds like I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm bad at World War I in this area. But basically, Zosky was playing with the Hungarians in Bosnia and Serbia, making it a hornet's nest, causing chaos, causing upheaval, trying to pit people against each other to destroy him, because he couldn't get them to go, because they were being hurt and they asked Russia for help. Russia wouldn't help them. So he was causing this chaos because he wanted to destroy their power in case they paired up with Germany, and he was trying to preemptively just cause chaos so Germany wouldn't have a strong ally to be with. He gets caught, he gets ridiculed in the press, but his position is saved by the intervention of King Edward. And they are loyal to their puppets until they don't want to be, and they kill you. I mean, think of how many people Eric Swalwell slept with a Chinese spy. It was in the paper for 2 weeks. And maybe we had funny memes making fun of it, but he's instead of in the security or whatever part. You can't have that. In any rational, normal, regular country, he should be embarrassed out of office. Nancy Pelosi is ridiculed sometimes, always holds power. Why? Because these people keep them in power. They do their bidding. They're not going to take a chance and put a newbie in unless they know they can count on you. So the triple allyship happened, and there's chaos in Hungary, but in Germany knows something's going up. They see what's going on. So the committee I'm almost done. I hope you guys are enjoying it. Yeah, I'm really close to done. So the CID, the Committee of Imperial Defense, they host a secret subcommittee that continue to pursue military and naval conversations with France. Richard Haldane at the War Office had to reorganize military connections that had been loosely left in the hands of a Times correspondent, a journalist who had his own office in the War Office. So basically what this is saying is the journalist was working with this military group that's helping to increase military presence and everything like that. And a journalist even had his office in that building. I see no conflict of interest of writing the truth and having an office with the war people, right? I'm sure that wouldn't happen. It's just like how pharmaceutical companies advertise on mainstream media news sources and give them a large amount of their advertising money. But I'm sure that if something bad happened, they would tell the truth. They wouldn't lie. They're still journalists. They wouldn't lie that the pharma companies are corrupt and manipulative just because they pay all their bill. They give them huge sums of money. I'm sure the journalists wouldn't lie. And that's what they did then in Britain. They had this Times guy. He had unfettered access to help sell more papers because he had the first news about this commission and war things. And so people bought their papers, and he wrote about it favorably to dominate what people believed was happening. And this speaking of the journal, the elite sanctioned tons of fear stories. I'm going to put pre-World War I propaganda, anti-German. And so the elite, one of their favorite tactic using propaganda was to scare the British people about the Germans. So they wrote all this propaganda, like the Germans, because the Germans also building their navy up at this time, nowhere near the amount, like it was like something like the UK, while there are people starving and cold on the street, spent something like $50 million on to build these new warships. Germany spent $2 million on warships. But yet the UK is writing stories like the Germans are preparing for war against us. They're doing a full-on invasion. And isn't that exactly what they do today? Like, that's what just blew my mind about this book. Nothing changes. Nothing. China. China's ramping up their military. China's building all these warships. And they're doing this to scare us, to say, okay, wow, then yeah, let's spend another $1 trillion building nukes or building bombs or building weapons of murder, because they're about to do it to attack us. And that's the exact same the British did to the Germans, who spent like 4% of what they were spending on military spending. And this propaganda was bolstered by authors. Just like our movie directors and TV shows today, they had authors that were writing these crazy fiction stories that Germany had thousands of spies in the mainland Britain working and here. And at one moment, and these were the stories, in an instant, one day they took over Britain and they pounded them with propaganda stories, just like they do today in TV shows and movies, though, albeit a little better than they did then. Like this one says, British Empire Union, once a German, always a German. And you have a guy in a suit and a guy then, like Clark Kent style, the other side, he's in his military thing with the little horn on it. But yeah, so just lying about the Germans, doing all this stuff, building more and more. And then I don't want to miss, the last part was the best part. So if the newspapers always serve their owners and only their owners. Alfred Milner ensured that the secret elite gained and controlled large sections of the British press. The most popular British paper, The Times, was given unprecedented access to the military. And I'm sure it was just because he's an amazing journalist. Having unfettered access sells more papers. I already mentioned that. This is the last thing. Oh, so this Hamsworth guy that the secret elite vetted and approved started buying up this huge paper, The Times, and he was very anti-German and he was for the Boer War. Well, he also starts buying smaller papers up. And why do they do this? We have the same thing today, like Comcast, AT&T, Disney. They own all these propaganda places, mainstream media sources, and they do that because they want to. It looks like you're getting from different sources, and you guys all know this, but they're owned by 6 companies, and that's the same thing they were already doing then. Just so, evil, but brilliant. So brilliant. And I told you about the authors, the Northcliffe writing all this propaganda of Germans coming in your window at night and killing you and doing all these horrible things. And the ultimate aim was to, and they do that today too. Like I already said, like the TV shows today would be probably like militia groups or white supremacist groups. They're growing in your neighborhood. They're compromising your child. Eventually, their goal is to undermine public confidence, create a menace when none existed, and introduce legislation that eroded freedoms. Patriot Act, just in 1908 or 1905. It's just, I wish people read history because it's the same moves. And because the public is so dumb, we fall for it every time. Every time. Terrorists. It's the same. Terrorists are hiding in our streets. They're hiding in our schools. They're hiding in our universities. And they're going to tear America. What was the quote? Osama bin Laden supposedly said, "I will break America down from the inside." Like, it's laughable. Just like it's laughable looking at this propaganda, it's laughable to look at that propaganda. And most people believed it. I was a little kid, but 90% believed it. They believed Osama bin Laden said, "I'm going to tear America apart from the inside." Insane, dude. Insane. So then, you get these think tanks that they start trying to the round table that started by Milner. This is about influencing British's like colonies like Canada, and think tanks kind of turn into our NGOs, just trying to manipulate public perception and opinion. Yeah. So their policies are pushed anonymously and they're very anti-German at this time, totally hidden to the public. So the people that are regular, they're reading things, all these anti-German, and they think it's coming from knowledgeable, smart people. The last part, this is key, and we're going to pull them up. Lloyd George. So Lloyd George, and he reminds me of Bernie Sanders, and that's exactly what he is. He's like that stereo. That's what he is. He's Bernie Sanders. So he's the least likely politician to be bought under their influence. He is a man of the people. He's out in the street cheering for you. We're going to make a change. We're going to make it better. He's anti-war. He's aggressive against the aristocrats. He's a man of the people. And his performance as the president of he got his attention. But at one point in 1906, back rooms, he concedes to the interest of big business. Now, why does he do that? Well, Lloyd George, for all of his loud cheering and supporting of the common man, was also a degenerate. He loved sex, insatiable sexual appetite, and it made him vulnerable. So what does he do? He tries to, still be a man of the people. He gets one lady pregnant. And in those days, he's married. You would lose everything for that, as you should. They clear that one up. He then gets his friend's wife pregnant, and there's a court case. It's this huge thing in the papers leading up to it. The court case, they pay off this vicious prosecutor who's always kind of honest, and he asks him 2 questions. It's over in 4 minutes. Lloyd George escapes scot-free. So can you guess what he did next? He was loyal to them forever. And Lloyd George was not a man of the people. This Bernie Sanders lookalike is the same character as always. In 1909, he says he's got this great social reform bill we're going to get through. Look at all this money. It didn't work. The military funding grew again for another year in a row, and people's lives got not better at all. And they're about to sacrifice themselves for a war out of cowardice, a war out of threatened by another good business savvy country. So that's where we're going to end up there. Lloyd George became a shithead, and just like everyone. So next episode, we're going to start how things are heating up in Morocco, Germany, France. They were going to get in a disagreement there. Germany has to respond, and just all these events that lead up to World War I. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I learned so much about World War I here. I hope you guys did too. It is insane that we automatically think Germans bad once, they're bad again. But it's not true. It's not true at all. We've been lied to, right? We've been literally lied to. So you guys will find out as soon as what happens next, as soon as I find out, because I'll be doing the show with you guys while I read. So I'm going to do it next week, maybe Wednesday. If you want to support the show, as always, www.conspiracyorjustacoincidence.com. I've got Patreon or whatever you want to support on. That's great. Or leave a review. I'm always honored. I hopefully have my debate with Gary Wayne and Ken Amin. Ken's confirmed, but I'm waiting for Gary again. And as always, keep reading, stay positive, be a good person, get married, have kids, have a beautiful life that you build away from this beast of Babylon. And also prayers for our buddy Mitch, who's got court in December for January 6th, who's looking at like a month and a half in jail. And let's hope that someone like him doesn't have to go for the same tricks that they used in this show that we listened to today. So that's it, guys. I appreciate you listening. Thanks for listening. It truly means so much that you enjoy and listen. I literally I can't, but there's so many places to listen out there, and I'm honored that I have as many of as I do that do listen to me. Share the show if you want to help red pill somebody, because I think I pretty much stay out of like the speculation realm and stay primarily in factual stuff. Oh my God. And I got 3 awesome books. Maybe I'll do a poll which one to do next. It's either Washington, D.C. Architecture, Program to Kill by David McGowan, and I can't remember the other one, but I buy them and I'm like, oh my God, I can't read all these. But all right, guys, I'm Jack Allen. Thanks for listening. As always, stay positive. Do something good for yourself. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk soon. Peace out.